Hi everybody, Bobby Sanabria here, co-artistic director along with Elena Martinez of the Bronx Music Heritage Center, the BMHC, the place to be. On this edition of Percussion Discussion, we welcome Annette Aguilar, who's going to demonstrate for you and show you some of the basic techniques of Brazilian drumming. So, let's welcome Annette Aguilar to Percussion Discussion.
Good afternoon, good day. My name is Annette A Aguilar. I'm a percussionist, bandleader, drummer, multiple percussionist. And I want to thank Bobby Sanabria, Elena Martinez, and the Bronx Music Heritage Center for inviting me to be part of the percussion discussion here. And first, I'm going to speak about my group and the music that we play, which is Latin jazz, Brazilian, or Brazilian jazz, in the sense of what I use in different configurations of the group to keep us moving and working and bringing the music out there to the community, our communities, and the public, of course, and everyone, between duos, trios, quartets, and of course a large ensemble. And in New York City, where we live, in the New York City area, tri-state, especially in our communities, we like to bring the music to the communities, and sometimes it's just a small group with a trio and a quartet. And there are different adaptations you can have with big salsa numbers, playing samba, playing choro with just myself and the pianist, and different instruments. There are many gigs that I do, which is just trio, that I don't bring out the congas. I use what I'll show you later when I'm sitting on the cajon, also known as the box, used very widely in part of Peruvian music, of course, and of course Cuba, and in Spain for many years now. But it is a box, and it's an instrument that is very versatile, and you can utilize it in different situations, and you don't have to bring a chair because you already have one. So let's talk about a similar pattern we know as congueros, the percussionists congueras. And we have this kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Well, in Brazil, the emphasis is on the 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, which the surdo plays. The surdo is a bass drum similar to this, kind of, you can see that. Surdo meaning even a person who has hard hearing can hear it, surdo. So here's the beat. 1, 1. And one thing that's interesting, just within that basic pattern, it goes back to a similarity within a shaker. I like to always speak about the small instruments. 1, 2, 1, 2. Boom, boom. You can hear that too. And then going back, let's try that. In the surdo, the 2 drums, the drum, what they call the segundo, is played on beat 1. It's very interesting. And the primeiro surdo is on beat 2, because that's the dominant. And there are certain escuelas that we know in Spanish, or schools of samba, that just, one particular school just plays the primera, which is Mangueira, one of the oldest samba schools. So you just hear boom, boom, boom. But a lot of other schools, the high drum is the second surdo. Sometimes one drum. And there's another drum called the tercera. changes between both of them, which is pretty interesting. It's like boom boom, go go, gong gong, go gong, gong go. And that drum is normally higher. It's a little accent I'm giving there, but let's go back to shakers. And if you heard that, so boom boom chick, do boom chick, boom boom chick, do go the chick, boom boom chick. And here you hear the particular. An instrument that carries that. This instrument, called the pandeiro, this has that ride as well. There are many different techniques in the pandeiro, and there's thumb, tip, tip, almost like doing our heel toe. It's very interesting because the Pentecostal people play on the other side. A lot of you see the gospel tambourines and the Pentecost, they play this way. But in Brazil, and of course the pandeiro and pandereta in Puerto Rico with no jingles, it's such an old instrument and it's all around the world. It's pretty fantastic. But it's different sounds. Here's my thumb, I dampen. Some people dampen here, but I've learned this particular technique, which a great pandeiro player by the name of Marco Sano. I'm dampening the first beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then you can tell there's a certain type of this left hand, what we call a ride. Let's go back to this basic samba part that I wanted to share with you, which I did start when I played basic samba. And in the escolas of sambas, they call this drum, as we know this is the snare drum, they call it caixa. And each specific escola has their particular pattern. One of the patterns that step out and that uses the clave is a school called mocidade. I don't know if you can see this, but here's an old album. Mocidade Independente de Padre Miguel. This is Mocidade. They always wore green and white. That's that school. It's one of my favorite schools. And what I'm trying to, I'll play their part, their caixa part. Play that. in the Samba school, drumsticks, real loud, and they were emphasizing that part. But you can hear that part, and that part probably sounds similar to you. We know this part because that part, that is the three side of the clave, as some of us call the tresillo, and that's in Brazilian music. And then this two side, and if we're counting it in 4/4, that a lot of us do count, or in cut time, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if you're just counting the son clave on the 3/2 side, the 2 side is on the end of 3. We have on beat 2 and the end of 3. Of course, if you'll see this in Brazilian writing when you see dotted 8th, 16th, 8th note rest by 8th note, second measure is on the end of 2, and the one that's on the 3N is on the E, on the 3E. And the point is that there's a clave there. This music is from the Africa diaspora, and clave comes from Africa. So what's really interesting is that there are people who say, and there's no clave in Brazilian music. That's not exactly true, because you can see the math here. These are the facts. The fact is right in the playing of an old school like Mosagadi playing that. And then when you apply it on the drum set, a lot of this playing. Right? So yes, there is a clave in Brazilian music, but the Brazilians don't really think about it that way. It's their hidden figure. It's just something that it's in there, not the way that we speak about it in Western music, because we really break it down. And I'm sure, and the same thing in Cuban music. But now to analyze things, to have people who read music to understand this music, it's very good to understand that, because we all know the notation and this math is worldwide that we listen to. But the main thing is about the ear and the swing. So let's go back to something I'm going to show you. We talked about the pandeiro looking like a tambourine, but in Brazil, this is a tambourine. And there's a particular rhythm that's a 2-bar phrase that is played, and a lot of music follows key with that music, which is in clave. This is they call it the lecoteco. And a lot of you have heard this. Now you can hear the back end of the ghost notes that I'm playing. If I play it without the ghost notes. Okay. And the other way that you've heard this is, you got, you've heard bop 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 da ga 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 da 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 da. I'm sure if you heard all those old Carmen Miranda records, right? Ironically, that is on the 2 side. That is really 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the bossa clave, because 3/2 is really what this upbeat teleco is, because here's my downbeat. And there's also a part that you can play on the snare drum part. Here's a basic line. Now there's something you probably just heard me play. Interesting, I played the 6 because a lot of this sometimes sounds like a pileup. Now going back to some small instruments, one of my favorites is the caxixi. Bamboo, gourd, another great creation from the Afro diaspora. How beautiful this is. These were actually made in Brazil. Is that basic right? And these backbeats you can get. Pop, pop, pop. You hear a little pilot there, cascara? And a lot of things you hear a lot, like in choro, they emphasize the E of each 16th, the first E. Like, E-N, to E-N, to E-N, for E-N. So you can do the same thing here. Derecho. So it's interesting of just playing that particular upbeat. And then of course I have the bigger one. Sorry, I didn't mean to turn my back on you. Here's the bigger caxixi. These are great. This is made by a really great capoeirista and percussionist who lived in New York for many years and worked with one of my teachers, Mestre Georgie Alabe, but his is Cabello. Cabello is made these caxixi. He's out of school in Bahia. He lives there. So here's and a lot of times working with the duo, it's really cool just to have play. It's almost like the maraca player, Guido player. Speaking of Guido, I have something here that I really like, and I was fortunate to inherit this one by the late great Eddie Ribi, who wrote some incredible books about Brazilian music and Afro-Cuban music. Yeah, the Heckle Heckle. I don't know if you can see this, but it has like some kind of string, and I know it's some kind of metallic from some car or some rods, some frames from windows. You know, the windows have some certain things. A lot of things that were made in terms of the enslaved Africans coming to the New World. They created things. And you know the gourd of the Guido is an indigenous instrument. But I use, this is a fork from the Dominican Republic, but in Brazil they use more like a stick, and they play out the ride of the bossa clave, of the clave. And the thing is to press hard on this instrument. And there's at times I enjoy playing like a pilot on it. And another thing that's really interesting is these groups in Brazil called Pagode groups. There's a story behind that, and they have a lot of these instruments. It's like a small samba group that play around a table with somebody who plays a cavaquinho, guitar. The small guitars look like the Brazilian ukulele, but it's a great instrument. I've been trying to play it for a long time. And they play the patterns of the teleco-leco. So we know it's a 2-bar phrase, and everybody has to follow that. And this particular instrument is a repique de mão. I think you might be familiar with another instrument they call repenique. And it's played with the stick, and it's the one instrument, well, not the stick like this, but you can actually play with a stick like this. Usually it's smaller. And it's the instrument that is like basically the conductor in the score of the samba. Samba school comes in because you got this call. You got that. Anyway, this one is the pico de mão, and I love this instrument. It's and it plays with two other instruments that look like this. One is a tan-tan, and the other one is a hebola. And they're like little hand surdos, and they're really so cool. And then you have like a tambourine player, then you have a heko player, they have singers, and everybody knows the songs and stuff and that like that. It's so cool. It's really fun. And the parts I played on like a hebola, it's almost like the bass drum parts that you hear on a drum set. You have up here, like for hebola. Hebola is really usually like a headed drum, like a maybe calf head or not a synthetic head, not too much. But you have these parts, and then you have your hands, and then the tan-tan, like the 4-1. Anyway, but Ebola I like because it's really, you have this, and a lot of times I do a lot of variations on certain drums because it is a drum, and you know as what we've done in the Conga, that we've made so many different varieties of it, you know, and there's a teleco-leco that I can play. That's what's good about that. I mean, it's great about that. Anyway, now we're going to talk about the cajon. I'm going to show you one of the first things for me adapting what I've done with the cajon. And just the cajon by itself first. And then I will present a specific type of setup that I use for small groups in duo and trio. So this is a mallet. This is a kind of, since I'm right-handed, most of my phrasing with the tambourine parts, remember tambourine parts, okay, or timeline, which is part of the tambourine parts, of course. So I will put the bass drum part that we normally hear on the bass drum of a drum set. You hear that right? And then a lot of times, and if I'm playing fast, or if I'm singing, it's always like to have that grid going. So it's interesting because in these particular instruments, it's surdo player, tambourine, caixa, and baiano is a sabumba player with a triangle. So on the cajon, it's a really good adaptation. want to summarize, and I want to thank you so much for coming to the percussion discussion today. And a big shout to Bobby Sanabria, Elena Martinez, and thank you for having me. And thank you guys for checking in with us and soaking up all this information that's available to us now. I mean, it's always has been, but now we have, since we've been in the pause, basically, there's a lot of information, a lot of work that a lot of us are doing now. So I want to shout you out to that. But to summarize, I really want to show you, in terms of talking about the setup, in the quartet, you see the setup that I have. I'm playing with the quartet a tune called Bebe by Hermeto Pascual. It's a bayan. And the groove with the setup, I have two congas, cajon. And in the cajon, I also use a foot pedal. I use the one like this, and with a little cushion, and I actually play it backwards because it's a lot easier to schlep around, move around and set up and things like that. And cymbals, and you can see, and I have a little tambourine there. It's kind of bigger than the tambourine that I showed you. And just the groove. So in closing, I'm going to play you some tracks I did for a good friend of ours, composition. And it's about 5 tracks I put in here. I put Hepenique de Mal. Hepenique de Mal is with the hand. Heko Heko. Caxixi. Pandeiro. Surdo. And then I'm going to play the tumbarolas here live. And you can hear the outlining of the clave, the bossa nova clave. And you can hear that. The universal cell of the tercio, right? Here we go.
All right, we hope you enjoyed our special guest this week on Percussion Discussion, Annette Aguilar. Remember, if you missed this episode of Percussion Discussion or any of the previous ones, just go to our BMHC, Bronx Music Heritage Center Facebook page, and you'll be able to review them once again. For the BMHC, the place to be, the Bronx Music Heritage Center, I am the co-artistic director, along with Elena Martinez. My name is Bobby Sanabria. See you on the next Percussion Discussion.